are your thoughts about the fatherless kids? I mean, you know, the stats you hear about from the Census Bureau.
Definitely have an effect. I was a fatherless kid. In prison, 65% of the guys don't have fathers.
In prison?
In prison.
65%.
And it's about the same number for the ones who can't read. So there's a direct parallel to not having knowledge and going to prison. I did a radio show. I was in St. Louis about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was doing a radio show, and the guy that was doing the show with me, he had did a survey on the people who got killed in St. Louis. You know, St. Louis at that time was, I think, leading the country in murder rates, and he wanted to know why. So he did a survey. He said all the people that got killed that year, none had a high school diploma. So what that told me was not being smart was a direct connection to you being killed.
So you having a father figure growing up with you, you would have possibly been a whole different human being.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Anybody, I mean, because my whole thing is that I was looking for knowledge. I wouldn't have took cocaine if I wasn't looking. You know, I would have missed it. But I was looking for an opportunity to build myself on.
Yeah, you know, Don Lemon once said from CNN, more than 72% of African American births are out of wedlock, is what he said.
Wow.
72%. That's a big number right there. How much you think values and principles plays a role?
Oh man, values and principles are the keys. You know, if you got values and principles, then you can do anything. But without those values and principles, then you'll do anything the other way.
What's up, my On the Shoulders Giants family? I'm back. I'm happy. And you want to know why I'm happy? Because I get to help talk about the return of one of my favorite YouTube channels. Black Family Institute is coming back on YouTube. My man Heavy Hooks is in the building, and he has a special guest with him, and we're gonna have a good conversation about the Black family. You all already know when we link up, we have great conversations. We have fruitful conversations. We're not just out here blowing smoke, but we're talking about things that we apply in our everyday life and how these things go into the larger community, especially the Black community, to help improve our community, empower our community, uplift us, and make sure that we are creating stronger, more productive Black people on a regular basis. So you already know how it go. I'm Joseph Ward, the founder. If you want to support me, you already know all the links in the description to support me. Go to my website, www.ontheshoulders1.com. But before we get into the conversation, I want to give my guests some time to introduce themselves and then tell us, man, where you been, man? So Mr. Rodney Smith, aka Heavy Hooks, man, go ahead, take it away. Tell us where you been, man, and reintroduce yourself to the audience, man.
All right, it's me, Rodney Smith, aka Heavy Hooks. If y'all know, that's my rap handle. I sing and rap, and I do that because it's something that makes me happy, and I think everybody needs some type of activity, especially as you get older, that you love doing, that's not related to work. So that's why I'm Heavy Hooks. And I stopped making the YouTube videos for the Black Family Institute because I'm getting my master's, another master's in clinical mental health, so I can become a therapist. And in the midst of that, I went through a divorce, my second divorce. And I stopped making videos, and I want to get back into it. I was inspired by some of my subscribers asking, hey, when you gonna make videos again? So I was like, you know what? I need to add something different to the channel. So I thought of my ex-wife, Dee Dee, and so that's who she is. And she's helped me develop some great content. So I'll go ahead and let Dee Dee introduce herself.
Thank you. So hello, everybody. I'm Dee. No special artistry handle, just a nickname. So really excited come on and talk about some of the content that we've been creating. Definitely honored to have Heavy as, and I think it's been a lot of fun. Like, we learned about each other again, and a lot about things that we're really passionate about within like the socioeconomic space. So it's definitely been supportive for just kind of creating new content, and I'm super, super excited to see what people think.
Me too.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, Dee Dee, welcome to the family. Welcome to the channel. Definitely, it's an honor to have you here, and we definitely look forward to some of these gems that you're going to be dropping on us, because, you know, it's a clip we've showed this clip before, but this clip is just has too much in it. It's the Vanishing Black Family clip, and so we're talking about Black family. You know, on this channel, we promote Black families. In my life and all of our lives, we promote Black families. We promote creating structures that we can do our best to give our kids what they need to become the best versions of themselves. And so we're going to be breaking down this clip and talking about the importance of the Black family from our perspectives and from our experiences. So let me go ahead and cue this clip up, and we can get to it.
Raise your hand if you're married. None of you are married. Raise your hand if you would like to be married to your baby's father. One. The rest of you who don't plan to get married, why don't you plan to get married? I'd like to know that.
You already have your child to think about, and then a whole family to care for. You know, it's a lot of responsibility, and then you don't want the commitments.
I wouldn't want no man holding me down, because I think I can make it as a single parent.
But don't you think you might need help in raising that baby from a man?
Not really. I didn't have a father. My father wasn't in the home, so, you know, it really, male figures are not substantially important in the family.
Male figures are not substantially important in the family. Dee Dee, I would like to start with you. What were you, when you were growing up in your formative years, what were you taught about family and relationships? Because clearly, you know, looking at these young ladies, they were taught something that spurred them to seeing that the family structure isn't important. So what were you taught as a young Black woman growing up about family and marriage and things like that?
Yeah, I'm glad to be able to talk about this, because this is really something that's near and dear to my heart. So my mother was a single mother. Initially, she had me when she was 14 years old. So in the early 80s, like, this is kind of, you know, representative of the clip. And her and my father, they got married when I was, I want to say like 7, 8 years old. But they had been together since I was 2. So I just only seen him as my father, and my family is very large, right? So on my father's side, so my grandfather is one of 24 children, and then my father is one of 5, and then of course has probably like 40 some cousins, and almost everybody in that kind of function of the family were married. So all of my dad's first cousins or my second cousins, they were all married. My grandparents have been, you know, divorced and married. So most everybody I knew was married, but it went past that, because the family was from a really small community. So between these two kind of neighboring cities, I could probably see about 50, 60 cousins at one time. And this was just how we grew up. So you would go over here and see a whole group of your family. So it was just always something that was, you know, a norm, right? Family reunions were a big thing at the lake or at the pavilion, getting to see your grandparents on a daily basis, growing up in a 2-family household. It was just something that really became a norm. So it really didn't even occur to me that my mother was a single mother until I was much, much older, and kind of could, you know, put the math together. But it was essential. And you know, when I think about the responsibility that my dad took on, because again, my mother had me very young. And so when they got together, he was still very young. I think he was about 21 whenever he took on that responsibility, and raised me, you know, into my adulthood. But I feel like, you know, there's no way I could possibly repay this person, because that's just something it's just not really heard of today. But he took that responsibility in stride and never, you know, just never had a second thought about it. And it will always be something for me that is just something I very much cherish. That's the man that taught me how to play basketball and ride a bike and go fishing and showed me how to shoot my first rifle. So, you know, these are all things that it's important. It's important to have, you know, the larger unit, but that you know, that framework within the household is essential.
Right. So I want to say something to that, because I could tell that she respected the men in her family when we were married, and when we were not married, because she always respected my input. There was never a question about whether or not she trusted my guidance or my ideas. We've never fought about how we're going to treat each other as a person, how we're going to treat our kids, how we're going to raise our kids. None of that. There was never a disrespect. Neither one of us has ever hit each other or called each other out of our names. So you could tell that she respected her father and all the men in her family.
Gotcha. Well, that's vastly different, because it creates vastly different mindset than the young ladies that we have in the video. But you making me think about my upbringing, because I always thought you were just supposed to get married. Like, in my mind, that's what adults were supposed to do. You grow up, you find somebody that you love, and you get married, and y'all make it work. In my mind, because that has always been, for me, that's what we do. And what's crazy about that is my parents divorced when I was 5. I don't have one memory of my parents actually interacting, being together. I don't have one memory of that. But I knew my parents were married when they had me. And so in my mind, I was like, well, my parents were married when they had me. So for one, you're supposed to make kids when you're married, and 2, you're supposed to get married. So I just always looked at it like that. And to see that there's a whole nother section of Black people who are getting totally different messages, it blew my mind. Like, the first time I saw this documentary, it blew my mind. I had no idea.
That's how you grew up. I didn't think it was in there until like I was very much older in my life.
And so when I look at this clip, like I see my mother, like this is like the age range she was. Again, like she would have been the same age as these young ladies in this clip at the time. Right. But it just wasn't a part of the indoctrination. The indoctrination was definitely was my cousin Brenda and my cousin Eugene. They were super young. I just thought she just looked so beautiful, but I think she couldn't have been more than 22, 23. And in my mind, that's just how it happened. You meet your sweetheart, and you go, you come back from school, and the family has this beautiful wedding at the little church on the corner, and then that's it.
And that's it.
Live happily ever after. So that was always what in my mind, what the expectation was.
Yeah. Same over here. And but I know for me, when I moved, when my parents broke up, we moved to the south side of town here in Tallahassee. And that was the first time when I just started to see that, okay, everybody's family isn't the way I thought it was. Like they said it was on TV and in these books they've been reading to us. Family isn't really like that. My family isn't like that. So like, what is family? And so it's like you're trying to figure out what family is for you, or even what can I have a positive view of family and things like that. So all right, we're gonna run this clip some more real quick.
I ain't thinking about holding up for no sex, my man. If a girl, she get having a baby, carrying a baby, hey, that's on her. I'm not gonna stop my pleasures because of another woman.
What about birth control? What about condom?
Girls don't like them things. They don't like them things. They'll tell you to take them things off. They figure that you saying that they filthy or they dirty or something.
It's been a startling change in values. 25 years ago, you would not have heard such things said so freely because they were not embraced so widely. The strong family was still the backbone of Black America, and 3 out of 4 children had both parents at home. That is true no longer. Most Black children are now growing up without their fathers.
That's 86. So if that's happening like that in 86, it's 2025 now. The values have degraded even further since 1986 to where we are now. Like, Rodney, we've had the conversation. I've literally had debates with young college girls about why it's important to have 2 parents in the household. Some of these young girls have literally gone toe-to-toe with me to explain to me why it's just you don't need it anymore, as if human beings have evolved that much to where 2 parents aren't needed. And even if it's not the traditional family structure, 2 parents are still needed. Looking at what the young man was saying in that clip, because basically the young man was talking about just getting with young women recklessly and making babies recklessly. How do you think that impact, like looking at that mindset in 1986, how do you think that mindset has impacted young Black men when it comes to creating families like now in 2025? Because I think that young man was like in his 20s in this clip. So looking at, what do you think, how do you think that mindset has impacted young men in their 20s like now in 2025?
I think that the 20-year-olds today, I don't think the majority of them would talk about condoms in that way. And I think most 20-year-olds, male or female, are not thinking about creating a family. And I think that there's been a disservice in how we talk about this. We don't talk about how in the 70s and 80s, at least where I'm from, a lot of our GM and Chrysler with no high school diploma and made upwards to $80,000 a year back then, and ended up and my grandmother made a nice living without a high school or college degree. I think we do our people a disservice when we don't talk about economics stabilizes the family and allows you to pass down those values. Because if you can't stabilize a family with a consistent job, you're going to mess with people's relationships. You're going to mess with where they live, how they live. And it's going to appear that Black people don't have any values and there's been an erosion of values, when really you just eviscerated how we stabilize our family with jobs, and how you can stay in a home and have a grandmother there, have aunts and uncles there to help reinforce the values that the mother and father is trying to teach their children, because you have a village around them. So really we're not doing what has happened to us justice, ignoring that part. It's not that our kids today or who we are today are more terrible people. Is that the system hasn't allowed us to have resources to reinforce continually those values that we want to uphold.
Yeah, and I would like to speak just on the larger community aspect of it and the opportunity to be able to kind of bring those units in to stabilize, right? So going back to the example that I was talking about, my grandfather, right? He was the foreman of one of the largest refineries of titanium, right? It's called Timet. So it's a really small town in Ohio. But when he took that job, literally the whole family worked there at some point, right? So he was able to get his nephews, his sons, his brothers, anybody that needed a job at the time, he had them go through, and they were, to your point, making very good money at the time. So people were able to stabilize their family. And because the family still lived very close together, cousins kind of lived on the same block or just 4 or 5 miles down, everybody was able to still support each other. So from an economic standpoint, it was more probable that, if somebody was starting a family, they were going to be off to a good start, right? Because they had not only the support of their family with whatever they might need, but they also had a financial support because individuals in the family, which were part of this community, were able to support them or help them find the financial support that they needed.
Yeah. Right.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, like me and my girl were just talking earlier about setting your kids up for success. Like you have a better chance of setting the kids up for success for that next step as a unit, as you know, the mother and the father working together, even the whole family working together. Because even now, like the whole family don't work together like they used to. That guy in the clip that was talking about not using condoms, just talking about women, that was my dad's dad. That was my granddaddy. You know, because he didn't raise my father. He had got my grandmother pregnant and then tried to act like he didn't do it. And my dad looks like he literally looked like he spit my dad out. Like, how you gonna deny somebody that got your whole face? Right. But it's like he just took it and put it on him, right? But it's just like that mentality. But also, my dad didn't do that. My dad has a father of 4, and he's raised all 4 of his sons, and he made sure he set his sons up, not just raised them, but set us up for success. So that goes back to what you're talking about, Dee, like that family unit being there to have that foundation there. So that's why it is.
And also, I just think having somebody that's willing to take that leadership charge, you know, like somebody in the family because that's I think something that is missing too in the Black community, where you had kind of like, you know, kind of a leader in the Black family, if it was your grandfather or great grandfather or whomever, who kind of like set the tone for everybody else. I'm not saying that everything that they did was right or wrong. Right. It's just that they would set the tone. And so there was a necessity to have a little bit more respect for yourself and for your family, because you knew that, you know, Uncle Jimmy or Uncle Harry, like they're going to have something to say to you to take you to the side if you're not following suit, right?
Right. So back to my point though. So then if we take jobs away from a lot of these people, then who gonna listen to this person that don't have a house for you to be in for them to tell you what you need to do? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, Chancellor Williams talks about it in his book, Destruction of Black Civilization. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing talks about it. Neely Fuller Jr. talks about it. But it's neither Black men nor Black women are respected as men and women in this, especially in this system of white supremacy, because of resources and things being able to be taken away from us like that. So it's like, since we're always dependent, we'll always be seen as like the children, but our family structure and the way we interact with each other can always be manipulated by those who have the resources, because for one, they have the resources, and for two, we keep depending on them for the resources instead of making sure that we can do it ourselves, i.e. starting families, because that's the basis of being able to do for self, having families, keeping families together, and families working with families. So
yeah, we got to get to that point again where families are working with families.
That's how you create a community. And so, all right, so Dee, we don't really have chances to talk to women on this channel, so I got some questions for you. And it's good questions. It's all good.
All right, I'm ready.
It's all good, because, and it's just for me, it's just curiosity, because you come from a family that is family oriented. So what kind of lessons did the women in your family pass down to you about womanhood, but also about building with a man or working with a man?
So it's interesting, because it's just as many men are kind of surrounding you, like in this family unit, were women. So like I said, my grandfather was one of like 24 children, right? So all kind of great aunts and great uncles, and everybody was a family unit, and everybody kind of moved in that way with their children, their grandchildren. So you got a lot of lessons just about, you know, from small things about, you know, how you're supporting your siblings, how you are, you know, being supportive to your family by just showing up. And of course, you know, the traditional matriarch roles as well. I mean, that's what they were. Like, not that all of the women didn't work, but some of them really didn't have to go and work, but they, you know, made sure to talk about like the responsibility around, you know, having the ability to maintain your household and be, you know, be there available for your children. I can't, like, for example, for me, like my mother didn't work until after my parents divorced, right? So they divorced when I was 18, but for my entire childhood, she never worked outside the house. And so then you really kind of understood, and so did a lot of my other cousins and my aunts. So you really understood, you know, this is what the expectation was. This is the expectation of maintaining your house. This is the expectation of, you know, supporting your children and making sure that you're available to them whenever, you know, something's coming up at school. But we're also kind of from the country too, so it's a little bit different because in the same token, they're teaching you life skills as well. Like I learned how to scale a fish when I was like 7 or 8 years old. You know what I mean? And that wasn't from that was from one of my aunts, not even from my father. So there also were really, especially the women in the family were really you know, strong about making sure that you understood life skills, that you had a skill, like something that you could be useful with, whether it was if you're cooking, if you could do hair, if you can you hunt, if you can fish, if you can, you know, shoot a bird, whatever it was for how we grew up, you know, it was important for them to say, okay, you need to make sure that you have a skill. If it's woodwork, even something as simple as that, like being able to do woodwork or being able to sew or knit, that you actually had a skill. So those were things that kind of led you onto, and it was never a point in time where they were like, oh, you know, you shouldn't be worried about going to college or anything like that. You know, they wanted you to be successful in school, but in reality, it wasn't something that was like drilled into us either. Like, college was not something that most other people had done in my family, and it was not something that was drilled into either the girls or the boys. It was something that, yes, of course, they were proud of you if you did, but it was more so around making sure that you were there to support your family. Like, so one of the things, even to this day, my family is fighting mad if we don't come back for the reunion every 4th of July. This is something that was important to all of our you know, our great grandparents and our great aunts and great uncles. And I try to make it a habit, even if it's the one time a year that I go back to Ohio, I try to make it a habit to get back to the family reunion, because that's really the only time where people can, you know, all of us come together and see our cousins and our, you know, our next cousins and all of that. So that was another thing that was, and like I said, to this day is still essential. Like, my aunt will still call me up and be like, I know you're going to get to the family reunion this year. Yeah. You know how important it is to everybody, for everybody to be there. So. Okay.
But I love it because life skills, but not, like you say, not beating things into you, but you see through the normal everyday patterns and the culture that's created and within the family. But like Dr. Marimba Ani says, culture helps to insulate and protect people. So the culture that you come up in helps to give you the foundation that you need when you're going out into the world, so you can be as successful as possible, make the best decisions as possible, be the best version of your Black self that you can be. And it worked. It worked. So that's important. That's why I asked the question. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you're making me think about it, but one thing that I would also like to point out is, like, that idea around male and female gender roles wasn't something that was kind of beat into us either. It was just you kind of learn from your environment, right? So, like, for example, and I hope she never sees this, but my dad is actually a better cook than my mom. Like, he wouldn't cook because he'd be at work, but when he did, it was like a treat for us because, you know, he's kind of a better cook. And so when he had the opportunity, he would. So when we would gather for, like, the family reunions, for example, like, one of the big things at the family reunions, there always is a bake-off. And the siblings, the older siblings, like my grandfather, him and his siblings, both the men and them, they would go to battle for this bake-off because they could all bake, but the men and the women, they could all bake. And it just so happened that my Uncle Skip, he was the best baker, and his sisters would get fighting mad every single year because he would, like, dang near always win, right? And so that kind of that gender role idea of like, oh, this is what men do. It wasn't really something that was kind of pushed into us either, because at the same time, a lot of my aunts, they would go out, during deer season, and they would be hunting with their brothers and, some of the other, guys in the family as well, for the women that really like to hunt. So there wasn't this separation of that. They all sang. That was one thing too. It's like, whenever they would get together, especially the family reunions, all the siblings that were there. And, at the time when everybody was still alive, you probably was like 18, 19 of them that would be there, and they would all sing together, all the brothers and sisters. So it was just, you could tell that my great-grandparents, Grandma Iva and Pat Perry, they really also just wanted to kind of instill that same notion that, you guys as siblings, you have to keep some of these things sacred to pass down.
Yeah. Yes. Now, that's beautiful. You sound like you are describing one of the tribes, the African tribes across the globe that I like, because I watch a lot of Travel Channel stuff with people going around the globe visiting different African tribes and stuff. And you sound like your family, sound like you're describing the whole African tribe, and you all are getting along and living off the land. Things happen, because I mean that's what it's supposed to be. Like I understand we have these ideas of gender roles and all these things here, but then I ultimately ask, well, who do these ideas come from? Because at some point, men and women had to always work together from the beginning of time. If we are out in the savannah and we need to survive, hunters and gatherers existed for a reason. So why is somebody hunting, somebody gathering? But we both have to have the wherewithal and be able to defend ourselves. And hey, some hunters know how to gather, and some gatherers know how to hunt. We got to know how to work. So so in contrast with that, Rodney, like what did the men in your family teach you about manhood and building family and sustaining family?
It was pretty much more like what Dee Dee's family was. It was not a sit in the classroom, all the men gonna tell you what to do about every situation. It was them going to work every day, seeing them sacrifice. All of them had multiple jobs. Like I was raised by my stepfather, and my stepfather was a DJ and he worked at Chrysler. So on the weekends when he's off from Chrysler, he's making extra money by doing weddings and family reunions. And I'm carrying his heavy crates and big speakers, remember the vinyl, them vinyl albums get heavy when they stuffed in them crates. So I just remember him and my grandfather just always working, but always making time for family. They were always a part of the, I can't think of the proper name, but whatever it was that got people together for the holidays for GM and Chrysler, they would be a part of that. And my dad would DJ at the family events for Chrysler and GM. And they were both parts of the union. I think that's big too, because that's another thing to help protect yourself at work. America is always trying to destroy your ability to work collaboratively, like through a union. So I remember that. So they're always were showing us that community is what protects us as a people. Whether that's your family, a collection of families, or you at work creating a union, you need groups of people together for a cause that you believe in. And so that's what they taught us. And like you said, growing up, all of them were married. So I grew up thinking that's what you do. You grow up, you find a woman that matches you, you get married, you have kids, and you try to instill these values in your kids. So the men in my family were always talking about hard work. When they did speak, they always wanted to make sure we were hardworking men, that we respected the family, we respected the values in our family, we respected the women and children in our family, and be a role model for the next group of young kids that's going to be coming up.
Yeah. This a lot of the stuff that I hear from people all over the internet I really didn't start hearing this stuff till after I graduated from college. And, you know, I'm 41 now. So after I graduated from college, I started hearing a lot of this stuff, that the unhealthy relationship stuff. But then I started really paying attention, and I realized that for a lot of us, especially who didn't have that strong family structure, most of what we learned was unhealthy relationship stuff. Some of our favorite movies surround unhealthy relationships. Favorite songs, unhealthy relationships. We be singing to the top of our lungs, breakup and cheating songs, and we ain't even really thinking about it. But it's just like, well, if that's the stuff that we value in our community,
That's funny.
man, look, man, I be singing, what's that? Pretty Wings by Maxwell. That's my song. But it's one of the greatest breakup songs of all time. We not out here trying to break up. We trying to stay together. But it's what's within our culture.
But I want to speak on that too, though.
Go ahead.
Because I was just to push back a little bit, because I think we've talked about this too, is that we do need to be able to say, if it's toxic, you should break up. Because we talked about how a lot of these older relationships that stay together, it does not mean that they were not toxic. It doesn't mean that behind closed doors, you know, we don't hear and see what's really going on, and to convince people they should stay together just for the sake of staying together. I don't really know. What do you think about that?
No, we've talked about it too. And I think it is important for people to understand that there is an appropriate way for you to still, remove yourself from unhealthy situations, especially if you've really given it your 100%. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the family breaks up. Right. And I think that's, so I got another story, right? Because we're on the whole, you got me thinking about the family. So my grandfather, love him to death. But this man was adamant. Now he had been married 3 times. And do you know, up until all of them passed away, all 3, his first wife, his second wife, and his current wife, up to the year he passed away, they all would be at the family reunion together. If there was a family function, if a child graduated, if it was the family reunion, if it was a funeral, all of those wives would be there at the same time. I couldn't even get we're concerned about my mother and father being at my brother's wedding together. But he made sure he did not play about that. Nobody was going to feel uncomfortable. All the children were going to be comfortable. Everybody was welcome, half siblings, step siblings, whomever. But like I said, up until the year my grandfather passed, every last one. And even after that, my grandmother, his first wife, and that wasn't really, that was her family, of course, because those are her children. But she was not a Howard, she was a Zimmerman. But up until she passed away, she still went to the Howard reunion and cooked for the whole family reunion every single year. So I think it's that other piece when we talk about the Black family, and some of the things it's missing is really having that leadership in the Black family that does set a precedence, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Because I got a story too. It's a quick one. My uncle, he divorced his first wife, remarried. Maybe a year or 2 into the marriage or something like that, his ex-wife just shows up at his house. His current wife opens the door with open arms like, hey, what do you need? And to me, that's what family is. Just because we're divorced doesn't mean we can't help each other in your time of need. It wasn't no fight. Yeah. It was, well, how can we help you? And I think that's what's missing, because today when you break up, people expect you to fight and kill each other forever till y'all die.
Well, yes. That's one of the best things about my parents. Like I say, they've been divorced since I was 5 years old. I've never heard my mom talk bad about my dad. Never heard my dad talk bad about my mom. I've never seen them really have a real fight. I mean, they've had some riff-raffs or whatever time to time, but I've never seen them have no real fight. I've seen them be able to work situations out as adults, but it was never a situation where my mom was like, you can't see your kids. If something happens, she's like, I'm calling your daddy. You know, and so I like that, but I do think what attributed to that was her father, because from my understanding, my mother's father was the complete opposite of my father's father. So my mother's father was seen as the man that everybody in the town loved, all the kids loved, and he took care of children that wasn't his. He took on the stepfather role. My grandmother had about 7 children by the time she met him. I think she had 11 or 12 overall, but he stayed up there. He stayed with her. He loved her. He supported her. He supported the kids. My oldest uncles talk about how my grandfather played an important role as father to them. And so that's what I lean on. And that's the stuff, that stuff was impressed on me from the beginning. So I think that helped shape me to like, we need family. We know, because I don't have any kids right now, but I'm the guy who I can't wait till I have kids. I'm just ready for, I'm ready for the family. I'm ready to build a family. But of course, you know, being smart, not just trying to jump into a building with somebody that's for me and compatible, but I can't wait till that time.
Okay, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. But it's also like talking, like when you approach me about this conversation, I'm like, yes, let's have this conversation, because the young people and Black people within our community who may be discouraged about family. What advice would you two give to anybody who may be discouraged about family? Any man who may be afraid to get married, and women who may be afraid to get married because they're afraid of the downs. They're not afraid of the ups, and they're afraid of the downs. What advice would you two give them?
I would tell them that there's ups and downs in anything, and it is not the end of the world if it fails, if it does not work out. Like, I think people got to accept the fact that failure is a part of life, but that doesn't mean that what you created was a failure, and that failure in the sense of that wasn't supposed to happen. Clearly it was supposed to happen because it happened, and you should be viewing it as, what can I learn from this? Everything's not meant to happen forever, I guess I should say. That's probably the better way to say it. But we at least have to try, and then we continue to treat each other like humans if it doesn't work out the way that we expect it to. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think one piece of advice, and we've even talked about this before too, is, you know, when you're looking for your partner, when you're out there and you're trying to, you know, figure out what it is like, that you should really lean in on your own self-values first.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would always encourage you to understand what values are, what your own value system is. And then that way you have a better understanding of what type of person that you may really align with. Because I'm a true believer that if you have a similar value system to you, it makes it a little easy for you to get past the hard times, right? So again, even if getting past the hard times means, well, we don't really work as a husband and wife couple, but maybe we work as, you know, just great friends. Have love for each other, be kind to each other, raise children together, you know, build equity. But when you aren't sure about your own values, it's really hard for you to align with somebody else. So I always would just say, make sure that you understand what your own values are. Do a little bit of self, you know, discovery in that place too. And then when you are ready to start to find somebody that you truly want to settle down with, or you want to have a partnership with, just make sure that you are very upfront and about what your values are.
Yeah.
That way you can align with theirs.
Yeah, because we did just talk about that. So I'm glad she said that, because remember, Women are saying they want 6 inches, 6 foot, 6 figures. Men want an hourglass figure, somebody that shuts up all the time, or whatever it is they want. A lot of times they're not looking at, well, what do I value? Does this person value that same thing? Because you can get the 6 foot 6 inches. She can have a fat booty, but if you don't match, your values don't match, it's going to be a mismatch. And it's like you said, it's going to be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. We were reviewing another clip the other day, I think it's Thursday or Friday. I had sent it to Heavy, and it was about, you know, I basically titled it, like, what are you baiting people with?
Oh, right? Yeah.
So if you are out here baiting the opposite or the partner that you want, if you're baiting them with, you know, things that you think they're going to value versus your own values, well, you're going to get a certain caliber of person. So, for example, there was a clip, I forget, I think his name is Jamal Woodard, or he's an actor, and he was talking about, you know, why he prefers to date outside of his race, and, you know, this you know, it's the same story. Yeah. But what he was saying was that, you know, well, you know, these women that are, you know, that aren't Black, you know, they know, I mean, like the king, and they
I think he was saying something.
I was just saying that you're talking about the dude who played Biggie Smalls in the movie.
Yes. And he was saying, you know, that they just the Black women that he's come in contact with, you know, they're all about, you know, the money, they want the Birkin, they want the bag. But in my thought was, well, if you're baiting you're going to get a certain caliber of woman. If you're baiting them with flashing money and flashing purses and flashing this, because you have that available to you, that's probably what you're going to attract.
Yeah. And initially, when I heard her say that, I was like, nah, that ain't right. But then I had to eat it, because I was like, well, if I want a woman that's not concerned with the material, then yeah, I should be baiting, hey, I'm a family man, showing pictures on Instagram of me with my family. I value children, so I'm gonna show pictures of my children. So I attract that type of woman.
Right. Now that's real. Yeah, I agree. What you put out gonna dictate what you get back. Because I saw that clip with him. I didn't watch the whole clip, so I do need to sit down and watch that whole clip. But I saw that clip, and I was thinking overall is honestly my mindset went to, like, I'm sad that we're to a point to where we don't see the value. Black men and Black women, especially in the social media realm, don't see the value in each other. And that's one of the first thoughts I had for that. I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not gonna waste my breath telling any man who to date. I'm pro-Black. I think Black people should be with Black people, but that's just me. But I'm not gonna waste my breath telling anybody who to be with. But the first thought was like, I wish we valued each other more, and we valued each other more to where we could sit down as grown people and work out the issues that we may have or even perceive to have, because we may not even have the issues that they keep telling us that we have, but we're not to the point where we can sit down and really hash it out with each other. And now that's what made me sad about that. Now I know my brain went left with that, but that's what I thought about with that clip.
No, I agree with you, because we couldn't possibly value each other if we're always focused on the exterior aesthetics of things. That's not who a person is. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Like character. Like, so when I ask, so I do HIV testing for a living, and I get a chance to sit down with college age people and talk to them about how they are relating to people, especially sexually. And I'm asking them, what are you looking for in your partners? What are you looking for? Asking the young men, what are you looking for in women? And I'm asking the women, what are you looking for in men? And things I don't hear is character. Things I don't hear is value. Things I don't hear is integrity. Things I don't hear is how they treat themselves and others, how they love themselves and others. It's more so what you can do for me and how you can make me feel and how you look doing all those things. And I think, like, cause you two, like Didi, you don't know how refreshing it is to hear you telling your story and hearing what you're saying, because you actually care about values. Of course, in real life we hear, but on the internet, we're not really hearing that a lot. So your voice is definitely welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
I agree with that too.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I agree too, because like the way we're socialized as men, I mean, we're always looking at the exterior, what she can do for me sexually. We haven't moved to the part where how is she gonna be as a mother, as a partner, as a mate, as a business partner, as somebody that can instill values. Like we haven't been socialized in that way yet.
Right. And that's one of my pet peeves for us men is, and another reason why I worked so hard to move out of the neighborhood that I was in, because I got sad that it was a neighborhood with at least 20 older black men, and not one of them could teach me anything useful, because most of them had been given up on themselves in life. And it's just, that's sad, you know. And so I wanted to make sure I put myself around black men that I can actually look up to, because I think we need that. Like even at my age now, like me and my girl was talking earlier. Years ago, I made my mind up that I'm serious about being a father. I'm serious about being a husband first, a husband and a father. So what I want to do is I want to learn how to be a husband, because nobody's ever taught me. I know my dad has remarried. He's been married for over 20 years now, and they're doing good. They're thriving. But I still have never been taught how to be a husband. So I put myself around men that I respected, that loved their wives, that was happy with their wives, that loved their families. I put myself around them, and I learned from them. I asked millions of questions, and I learned from them on how to be a father. And I started that maybe 8 to 10 years ago. And I believe that has helped me in my view and my whole outlook on family and women, and just creating that family structure and things. But I think you have to want it too. Like at the end of the day, you can't just talk about being a husband or a wife. You have to actually want it and want to put the steps forward to learn what you know you don't know.
No, that's true. I want Didi to talk about what you just talked about, because when we were married, she brought up the fact that I didn't have a collection of men around me. Remember can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that was, especially after, so I know you and Rodney have talked before, but Rodney had, well, I guess he's both of our favorite Uncle Marcus. And I think after he passed away, like, I think that was, I know it was really painful for him, but it was also kind of like an anchor, if you will, that was gone. And not having a larger collection of men, of male friends that had the same value systems as he did, and where he was in his life at those times, I think is really difficult, because of course you have conversations with your spouse and your partner. You entrust them, they become your confidant. But there's still, I think, for just as important it is for females to have kind of that covenant, and women, I think it's just as important for men to have a covenant too, a group of men, like-minded men that they can entrust with, what they're going through, their fears, their aspirations, and being able to reach out to them and talk to them, outside of just your spouse. Like, your spouse is a wonderful anchor to have, but there are times when you need to reach outside of that unit and get different perspectives that support you from a male perspective.
Yeah, so I thought that was really big that you started doing that before you even became a husband and father, because she was right. Like, I just didn't have a collection of men around me that I could talk to, offline like you. That's why I made sure I stay in contact with you and Carl, because I want to build a bigger collection of men, because we're like-minded about family in the Black community.
Right.
And that's going to help you in any relationship. So I think that's big of you, Joseph.
Yeah,
no,
I agree. That. And I did want to speak to something. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to speak to something else too, because I think it's also, this is important for women, regardless if you're single, you're divorced, you're widowed, what have you. I think it is just as important for you to seek out not men to date, but seek out men in your community, especially Black men in your community, that can also help support, what it is you're trying to instill in your children as well. Even if their fathers are in their lives, it's great to still have a larger sense of community. So what I mean by that is, for example, during the pandemic, I had lost my job. I really couldn't stay in Indiana anymore. I had to move to Atlanta. We were all living in Indiana at the time. I moved to Atlanta. When I moved to Atlanta, of course, Ronnie still lived in Indiana. Me and the children moved back to Atlanta. So I'm there by myself, but with the kids. But, being there, it kind of just dawned on me like, okay, well, there's Black coaches, and there's, other, Black support systems, Black, men with businesses that are like, hey, I have a business. Even if your kids aren't interested in this, you can always bring them to this event. Or AAU coach is like, hey, we have this, we can help you with the resources, just, get your boys involved. And that's also important. So even down to, we had, at the time, we had a neighbor that lived 2 doors down. It was a grandfather lived with his, a father lived with his daughter and his daughter's son. And the son and my son got, very close. So he would basically come over and play every single day. So of course the grandfather started to also look out for the kids too. So there were some days where I had to drive all the way to Roswell, which is quite far from Decatur, for work, and then come back. The boys would, come home by themselves, and the grandfather would always look out, make sure they got in the house. Sometimes he'd bring them snacks. So, and of course I'm grateful. So I'm like, let me just take something over to him and his daughter just to say thank you. So even something as simple as that, but being able to kind of seek out and get that type of support in your community is essential, because your sons and your daughters, they do need that other side. They do need a large community, and it's important for them to see other Black men that can support their overall development.
Yes. Yes. That village. You need that village. If you don't have that village, you make it rough.
The village.
But so I always tell people this. My father was he was in our life. We didn't live in the same household, but he was in our life. But football coaches, men at the school. I was a part of a drill team when we were young. Like you said, other men played a role into it. Like, because sometimes, as children, I think another reason that the village is important, because sometimes we will underestimate our parents, or because it's our parents, we won't really notice their contribution until we get older. Like, my father was a professor at FAMU. He was an African American history professor at FAMU, and I didn't. When I was young, because I don't even remember, because we were talking not too long ago, and he used to tell us about how he would take us to his class, and I'll be in there. I'm the historian. This on the shoulders of giants. Now I'm in there. I'm like, man, this boring. This history stuff boring. I don't want to be here. And he was telling me about that, and we was laughing because it went from me being in this class talking about this is boring to me doing this now. But it's like, I wouldn't be doing this if my daddy wouldn't have been dragging us around, taking us to his classes. But also, I wouldn't be doing this if other men had not poured into me. So
no, that's exactly right. That's how it was for me when I got to college. If it wasn't for my Black male professors, that's what I majored in, African American studies. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without, first, my Black coach, Conzo Martin, who still coaches college today, gave me my first book. Soon after that, I get into African American studies, and I have 2 Black male African American studies professors, and like when my major changed to African American studies,
I think you found a sense of relief almost. It was like now you found something that really more so spoke to you and that you felt like was really relatable. Like a lot of times if you're just in a degree or in a program, you're just in it, you're trying to get through it, and it's not necessarily relatable to you. But I think when you started in your African American studies, like, I don't know, it's found something that's so relatable, and then you became really passionate about it.
Yeah, for real. No, I totally agree. Because before that, I didn't read any books. I didn't want to do nothing. I just wanted to hoop. You know, I was on the Purdue basketball team. That's all I wanted to do was hoop. But when I found African American studies, like she said, I felt a relief. I felt a sense of purpose and connection. So it was awesome, all because a lot of these Black men.
Yeah. Man. Cause like I say, it was my dad, so I didn't really understand it at the time when I was young. But when I got to college, though, I was mad at FAMU because I actually tried to take, my dad was still teaching at FAMU when I was a student there, and I actually tried to take his class. I signed up for his class, but for some reason or another, I got put in somebody else's class, and I guess they didn't want me to take my pop's class. But one of the reasons why I wanted to take his class, because everybody said he was the hardest African-American history teacher to take. So I'm hard-headed and I like challenges. So let me take my pop's class and see what kind of grade I get into this. And I know what I'm getting myself into, but let me do it. But also secretly, I want to see my pops do his thing. So, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Dee Dee, your grandfather sound like a superhero. Like, he sounded like somebody everybody need to get to know.
He was amazing, actually. And not only was he amazing, he was just like such a character. Like, I don't know if this is an appropriate story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I'm so sorry. So, my grandfather, he would always come and get us, right? So he had this old Jimmy pickup truck, and me and my cousin Mel, we were the oldest of the cousins. So of course we're the first ones, and there wasn't any other little ones, you know, other than us for a while, right? So he'd pick us up on the weekend, and he would take us in the truck to go to McDonald's, you know, or to get a Happy Meal, because it's the only time we're getting a Happy Meal is with Papa. And then he would take us to the lake to go feed the ducks. But in the Jimmy truck, and it wasn't no car seats, wasn't no seatbelt. And he was like, he was wild. He would always like go really super fast over this one bridge. So kind of like just, you know, playing, you know, go in the air just a little bit. And we just would laugh and scream. Like, that's the kind of mentality. Like, he thought that was just hilarious. And so anyway, he used to dip. Right? Tobacco. There you go. Thank you.
Right.
He used to dip all the time. And I just loved the smell of it because that was his smell, you know? And then all of a sudden, Papa stopped dipping, and he would always have spearmint gum. He was chewing gum all the time. And so one day, me and my cousin, we were like, Papa, why don't you have your, I forgot what we called it something. I think we called it trees. Why don't you have your trees anymore? Have your trees anymore, because it looked like trees, you know. And he was like, "Oh, one time I found a worm in it, and I put it in my mouth, and I swallowed the worm." You know, he would always just do stuff like that, and we're like, you know. But those are the type of memories that he instilled in us. And so when we got older, he would do this like just insane stuff. So he used to always come to our house, right? Now my parents were young. I told you my mother had me when she was 14, right? So even in my teenage years, my parents are still young, you know, they're still kicking it. And so they used to smoke a lot. And so, but my grandfather used to always come up the side of our house, and he would whistle really, really loud. And that's how we knew he was coming. And I just, you know, I never thought about it. When I was little, I was just like, oh, Papa's here, you know. So when I got much older, when me and my cousin got much older, you know, he sat us down one time. He's like, y'all know what I used to whistle when I would come to your house? And we were like, why? He's like, so your parents would hurry up and put their weed away before I got to the back door. Like, those are the kind of things that he would do. Like, it just I don't know, just like he never made life also seem like it was rough. Like, I am sure my grandfather worked really, really hard, but it always looked like he was just in a leisurely state. You know what I mean? So he just never took it too seriously. It just always seemed like he was having fun. So I would also say that's one thing that our family did instill in us, is like, don't take it too seriously.
And I've been to these events. She's not exaggerating about nothing she talks about. Like, I wish my family would do that every year, have a big reunion with everybody together. So they are like, no matter the problems, when that 4th of July reunion comes, they put it aside and they all love on each other.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's coming from a Black person who's never been to a family reunion. My family got to get it together.
Wow.
So that's something you can start for your family.
Yeah, well, I definitely plan on doing that. I definitely plan on doing that. But it just, outside of my mother and my father, and with the exception of my grandmother before she died, I never met my mother's father. He died when my mother was 8. With the exception of a few cousins and uncles, my family kind of do their own thing. And you got a small group of people who come together, that little critical mass within the family. But that's why I've always been big on building family, period. Because when I learned that I can choose my family as well, I was big on, okay, I'm going to choose, I'm not going to abandon my blood family, but I'm going to create family. And I'm going to create family, a family of good, productive people.
Yeah, I have
to. Go ahead.
I was just gonna just to circle back to like the whole value thing. Like one of the first times, or I guess maybe one of the things that really made me more attracted to Ronnie when we were dating in college is Ronnie had invited me to a Thanksgiving event that his family was putting on, and they were having it at his parents' house.
Right.
And I think I had met his mom and dad before, but I hadn't met the larger family. And so, I drove down and came to Indianapolis from West Lafayette and came to it. And it was just like the best time. Like, it was just, the guy had been like 30, 40 people in the house, and there's food everywhere. People are playing cards. There's little babies running around. And I love babies. So I'm just like scooping up little fat cells. And then the aunts are just, joking, and the dads, and everybody is just there. And it was so welcoming. It felt so good. And I was like, man, this is so important. Like, I'm so glad he has this. Like, I want to be a part of this because this is what I grew up knowing. Like, so, right. So I guess to that point is when people see this and we do talk about, okay, well, how do you know that somebody shares a value of you? When you're in a situation like that and it feels good, you share a value, right? When they invite you to something like that and you see where they grew up and you see how important it is to them, you share a value.
Well, yes. But see, look, my audience, that's why you all need to be tuning in. Y'all need to be tuning in. Y'all have to tune in. If you're not tuning in, if you're not following the Black family, like y'all like, come on, what are you doing? You messing up. He's back. They're back. And he didn't just come back. He came back with some reinforcements. The Black Family Institute came back with reinforcements to make it even better. But I love it because
let us talk about the new podcast.
Please.
Okay, so next Sunday on the Black Family Institute, me and Dee has started a new podcast called And That's Okay. And we trying to let you know, hey, that's okay. Dee had said something about podcasts.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things I'm really excited about is just the conversations to have and the different type of conversations that will counter some of the more negative, conversations that we've seen on other podcasts. We do want there to be more representation of Black men and Black women together. And regardless if we have different ideas about, or how something should work, we can collectively have a pragmatic conversation ends in, dry results, right? Coming to some resolutions. And it doesn't have to be argumentative. It doesn't have to be oppressive on either side. It doesn't have to be derogatory. It can still be, filled with passion, but it can be done in such a respectful way. And I'm happy that we're going to get to speak to the people in that way.
Yeah, me too. We just want to bring a different perspective to the current gender war perspectives and bridge the gap to let people know that, hey, it's okay. We're going to argue. We're going to fight. But after that, we're going to figure out how do we mend those broken down bridges. And
just get an opportunity to really kind of wrap the current conversation today in those panels of Black men and Black women, where it's always, very much like blaming and pointing, where we want that for our audience. We want this. There's a different way to communicate, right? There's a different way to receive those communications for comprehension and to be able to come to an alignment in those conversations as well. It doesn't have to end in a disruptive conversation that didn't come to any resolution. And I think, unfortunately, that's what we're seeing a lot in some of the podcasts that we review. So we want to do something different.
Yeah. So March 23rd, the Black Family Institute, the podcast, and That's Okay with Heavy and DD.
Oh man, it's going down. It's going down. It's going down. I'm excited because, like I said, we've been waiting on you to come back, man. I know you had to take your time off, and congratulations on pursuing your master's degree and everything. We would definitely want you to get that and go forward. But we missed you out here in these YouTube streets. And like I say, if you're gonna come back, you come back right, and you brought reinforcements in. And now what's really gonna be great is to be able to see YouTube interacting and talking about your lives and your experiences and your journey, but also helping, like you said earlier, helping to expose the real people behind the gender war, the real propagators of the gender war. Mm-hmm. Because in my opinion, there's no real gender war. We just keep getting fed this information that pits us against each other. And I think you two will do us justice and helping to fight against that. So I appreciate that. Heavy and DD, Black Family Institute, is going down. If you don't know, now you know. So if you are looking at this video and you support my channel, first, I need you to go on over to the Black Family Institute and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, you're tripping already. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell and the one that says all, so you can catch all the notifications that come down. So every time they drop a video, you can make sure you catch the video. And when they drop a video, you already know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and make sure as many people see it as possible, because we are here to support our people. And if you support Black people, to say the same way you say you support it in these comments, let's make sure we're supporting our brothers and our sisters as they going forward, especially bringing positive content that can help uplift our community. What more can I say, man? I'm so excited. I'm so happy. When you sent me the text message, I was like, yes, it's coming back. And then you made me have to go back and watch some of the old videos and things. But I'm ready. And Didi, welcome to YouTube. And we are definitely be here, ready to hear everything that you have to say and ready to learn from you. So you all make sure you all keep up the great work that you guys got going on.
Thank you so much.
No problem. And all my Own Soldier Giants family, y'all know what it is. We love you all. We catch y'all on the next time. See you later.